Okay, so I've added a lot of different things here. Basically, just I started off with a gray, um, just kind of light wash. After it dried, then I just kind of come in and just kind of blotted, like for stones. Add a little bit of brown for the fence and around the window frames. Apparently, I kind of forgot this one here, and not really sure what, kind of working out problems all the time, and that's what you really do is you're working problems. Unless you're painting the exact same painting over and over and over, then you're always having to deal with problems and figuring out solutions. So I'm gonna make it kind of a brick red front door. Wipe out my palette here. I got all the green from doing all the leaves. So let's make up some of this red. I think I'm going to use a little bit of burnt umber, and don't need a whole lot right at the moment. Burnt umber and a little cadmium red. And let's see. Let's give a little wash again. We can come back over top of it later. All right. Now maybe while we've got that brown mixed up, use the cad and the brown a little bit thicker, and I'm just gonna put another wash on here. This side's gonna be darker. Maybe even add just a little bit of ultramarine. Let's see how that does at darkening that brown up a little bit. Get that shadow side. So like I was talking about, we're working out problems. I think when I initially made this, I was thinking that I was gonna go a lot more simplistic, and now I'm getting more detailed than I really wanted to. This is also going to be the shadow side. And then while it's still maybe a little bit wet, I'm going to get some really more opaque. I'm just going to kind of dot in here, get some variations in the bricks. Again, maybe that's getting a little too detailed. Do that on the side. And just while it's still wet, it just kind of flows into each other a little bit. Now this is getting kind of dry here, so maybe I'll add some striations, maybe like a plank door here, and a little bit darker here because it's kind of inset, and so we need a little shadow. So part of being an artist is thinking about, how can I actually apply the paint, but then part of it is, where do I apply the paint? And so I got to kind of think about how things work and how physics works. And so we've got shadows, we've got overhangs. It's not just a flat lintel there, but it's going to cast a little bit of a shadow. So let's say here we're going to get some of that ultramarine and that burnt umber to kind of get a little darker gray. And so when you start mixing this, and it's really difficult to see here on my palette, but you can tell if it's kind of bluish or if it's brown, and if it's just plain neutral. So kind of mix it around, maybe even get a little scrap piece of paper to do that. And I'm gonna again make a kind of a wash, so I don't want it to be too opaque. maybe if anything I'm gonna be on the blue side, and maybe we'll just wash right over top of, it's because this overhang casts a little bit of a shadow, but probably going to be a little deeper here, and then we'll add a little overhang shadow, and I can even maybe use that color to darken up the brick. This isn't going to be as much, put a little bit there. It's about controlling the amount of paint and how opaque it is. And we want to make sure that these are reasonably the same depth because it's the same sun. Put a little shadow underneath the windowsill here, maybe off the side, just a hair. Adding a little more depth to the painting here. Okay, probably while I've still got that mixed up, if it's a neutral gray, I can a little bit of shadow on this. Maybe it's like a white stone, but it's going to be a little more in shadow. It's not going to be as stark a white. That's probably not translating very well there. While I still got that, I can put some more striations in, maybe the stepping stones. Give a little bit of texture here. Kind of did that already a little bit, but I'm just kind of thinking, okay, on the right hand side, those stones kind of curve in. Give them a little depth, like right in the crack, darkening that up a little bit. And it's stone, so it's going to have different, maybe little dots and little craggly spots in it. Again, I probably don't want to get too detailed. I'm going to put a little bit of a wash over everything so that I don't have that stark white. A little was too much. So I haven't re-dipped here at all. Just going to let that brush kind of dry out. It's a little darker now. This is a kind of a tough one, and this is one I'm a little worried about if I can pull this off, but I'm going to maybe make that gray again, but leave it a little bit on the brown side, just a hair, but pretty grayed down for the thatched roof. I was doing some research, and it looks kind of varies between kind of this golden and just a gray, because and now remember we have artistic license too, where I can make it whatever color I want. If I think it's more storybookish, then I can leave it nice and bright. It's kind of wet though, but that grass is been up there and been dried for quite some time, and so it gets kind of a grayish tint to it. This is the underneath side, so I probably want that a little darker maybe. And as it kind of comes down around, it's going to be a little darker. Kind of flicking up, and my brush naturally kind of makes that, gets a little thinner as I go up. It's a little darker than I'd like, but maybe if I just add some water and make this the nice thing about that is it's almost dry, so I can go and lay another wash down. Ideally, we want to do the washes first. I'm going to leave a little bit of that golden color kind of show through so I get a little bit of that texture of the roof. So it's getting a little bit deeper here, and as it dries really fast I can come back in, and while it's still wet enough that it bleeds a little bit, that's the key. Bleeding a little bit softens those lines but still gives it some texture. So I'm kind of giving this whole layer effect because all that grass is just individual pieces. Make a little darker clump in there. Darker brown here than that backside. Maybe I have to put another little wash over top of that. You know, it seems kind of unexciting too that we're using this burnt umber and alizarin grim or ultramarine. I do that a bunch, but that's really an earthy tone there. It kind of gives you a nice neutral color. Let's see, I got a little too much brown, so I add a little more blue. Where was I going with this? Add some, that almost got a little purple there. Darken up the side of maybe a rock or something. All right. Well, let's see. We're getting closer now. I'm gonna maybe make a little bit of a golden brown with the yellow ochre and burnt umber. And looks like I kind of got missed some spots in here. Probably add a little bit of blue to it. A little too pure brown there. Might just get in here and more blue. Get a little darker darks. A little more contrast. At the base of everything. Bouncing around. That underneath there is going to be pretty dark. Could even put a little bit of a blue wash on this to cool it down a little bit more. Maybe a little too much there. And I can always just wet my brush and fade that out a little bit, even bring it even over that golden yellow and just tone that down a little bit. This is still pretty bright here. Maybe I'll just add a little wash. Maybe there's some bigger branches up there that are shading that. I got rid of some of that texture. That was almost like too much texture. So going back over it kind of re-wets it a little bit, but you can still maintain some of that texture. Just kind of softens it a little bit. Okay. So now one of the other things that we need to do, I think we need to get darker in the windows. So again, I'm not using black. I'm just using burnt umber and alizarin crimson. Or I don't know why I keep wanting to say alizarin crimson all the time, but ultramarine. Darken that window up again. Even if it's glass, during the daytime, a lot of times you have a really hard time seeing through. That's more like a mirror. Alright. So now get that neutral again, and we're gonna cast some more shadows here. So like, just because it hit the stone doesn't mean that that shadow is stops. So I'll cast some shadows, maybe make them continue on. So these tree shadows are continuing on out, and we don't even know which tree this is. It's just a branch that's we can't even see the tree that it is coming off of. Then here we definitely need this. We want to keep it going to the same angle. This big tree trunk is casting a shadow, and the chimney is casting a shadow. Some shadows on the fence here. Just to darken that shadow up in here. So these are all the little things that you're probably just bored out of your mind if you've even watched this far. But those are the things that you want to think about. Let's see. Shadow there, because that's going to have a little bit of an overhang. I want that a little bit darker underneath there, and there as well. So I think we're getting pretty close. Maybe we've got some leaves up here. We can just add a little bit of detail. So I'm going to use again burnt umber and a little bit of this lemon yellow. See what that is in the ultramarine. See, the lemon yellow here, I don't know if I got to turn it around a little bit so you can see. The lemon yellow is a really bright yellow. It's more of a greenish yellow. If you use a cadmium yellow, then the cadmium has a little bit of orange in it, and orange is the opposite of blue. So then a lot of times we get a kind of a grayed down green. So it just kind of depends on what you want, but just know that. I'm just going to put some dabs of green. Some of them I've marked out with my pen, but some of them I can just kind of come in here and kind of the leaves back here turn a little bit orange, so maybe some of these leaves have already fallen. So that's why we don't have a huge amount. I'm just trying to be a little looser here because I got so tight with everything else. But so anyway, I don't know. I might just kind of call it quits here. Maybe I could put a little bit of purple in the background. I don't think I'm going to. I was going to add some trees back in the back, but I think well, I will do one more thing. Again, I'm probably, oops, phthalo blue, didn't really want that. Add a little bit of brown, this lemon yellow again, and I could put, not very green, but maybe some weeds in the cracks here. Probably getting a little too tight. Some of you are out there watching like, just let it be. Add a little bit of texture up close. Now as it goes back in the distance, I'm not going to do that because it would be so small a texture that you wouldn't see it at all. Anyway, I think maybe we'll call that quits. Hopefully you enjoyed it. A little tighter than I wanted it to be, but just kind of fun just to imagine something. So thanks for watching.